What if I told you that one of the simplest habits, something you do without thinking every single day, could quietly be shaping your mindset around wealth, discipline, and success? Imagine this. You walk into a home, and the first thing they do is take off their shoes. No exceptions, no excuses. Now here's the surprising part. Many Jewish millionaires treat this as a non-negotiable rule, not for cleanliness alone, but for something far deeper, something psychological, something spiritual, something that might completely change the way you think about money. Think about the moment you arrive home. You've been outside in a world full of noise, pressure, distractions, and constant movement. Your mind is carrying conversations, stress, unfinished tasks, and endless thoughts. Now imagine this. Before you even take a second step inside, you stop, you bend down, you remove your shoes. It feels small, almost insignificant, but in reality, that moment is doing something powerful. It's drawing a line. That doorway is not just a physical entrance, it becomes a psychological boundary. On one side there's the outside world, unpredictable, reactive, often chaotic. On the other side there's your space, where you decide what enters, what stays, and what leaves. And when you consciously remove your shoes, you are signaling to your brain that you are stepping into a different mode of thinking. Most people never make this transition. They carry the outside world directly into their homes. The stress follows them, the distractions follow them. The same rushed, reactive mindset continues without interruption. And over time, this lack of separation creates a life that feels scattered and uncontrolled. But those who build wealth, real, lasting wealth, often understand something deeper. Control starts with boundaries. By making the simple act of removing shoes a rule, you are training your mind to recognize that not everything belongs everywhere. Dirt stays outside. Noise stays outside. Chaos stays outside. And more importantly, you begin to apply that same principle to your thoughts and decisions. You become more selective, more intentional, more aware. This is where the connection to wealth becomes clear. Wealth is not only about earning money, it's about managing energy, focus, and decisions. If your mind is constantly cluttered, your decisions will reflect that clutter. You'll react instead of plan. You'll follow impulses instead of strategies. But when you create a clear boundary like the doorway ritual, you practice shifting from reaction to control. That brief pause at the door forces awareness. It interrupts autopilot. It tells your brain, slow down, be present, choose how you enter this space. And once your brain learns that pattern, it begins to apply it in other areas of life. Before spending money, you pause. Before making a risky decision, you pause. Before reacting emotionally, you pause. Over time, these pauses compound into discipline. And discipline is one of the strongest foundations of financial success. Not luck, not talent alone, but the ability to control impulses, to think long-term, and to act with intention. The doorway becomes a daily training ground for that mindset. Every single day, without realizing it, you are reinforcing a powerful identity, someone who chooses control over chaos. There's also something deeper happening. When you treat your home differently, when you respect it as a protected, intentional space, you begin to value what you have more. And people who value what they have tend to manage their resources better. They waste less, they think carefully, they act responsibly. These are the same behaviors that allow wealth to grow and stay. So that simple act of removing your shoes is no longer just about cleanliness. It becomes a symbol, a signal, a habit that shapes how you think, how you feel, and how you make decisions. It teaches you that every space in your life can have a purpose, and that you have the power to define it. In the end, the doorway is more than just an entrance. It's a checkpoint for your mindset. And every time you cross it with intention, you're not just entering your home, you're stepping into a version of yourself that is more focused, more disciplined, and more in control. It's easy to overlook small habits because they don't feel powerful in the moment. Taking off your shoes, making your bed, putting things back in place, these actions seem too simple to matter. But the truth is, success is rarely built on dramatic, life-changing moves. It's built on repetition, on the quiet, consistent actions you perform every single day when no one is watching. When someone makes it a rule to remove their shoes every time they enter their home, they are doing more than just keeping the floor clean. They are practicing consistency. They are reinforcing a standard. This is how things are done here. And the key word is always. Not sometimes. Not when it's convenient. But every single time. That's where discipline begins. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to do hard things occasionally. It's about training yourself to do simple things consistently. Anyone can act with motivation for a day or two, but long-term success, especially financial success, comes from habits that don't depend on mood or emotion. The act of removing shoes becomes a daily exercise in following through on a decision, no matter how small. Now think about how this translates into building wealth. Managing money requires the same kind of consistency. Saving a little regularly, investing with patience, avoiding unnecessary spending, none of these actions feel exciting in the moment. In fact, they often feel boring. But just like the habit at the door, their power comes from repetition. When you prove to yourself daily that you can stick to a simple rule, you build confidence in your ability to stick to bigger ones. There's also an important psychological shift happening here. Every time you follow through on a small habit, your brain registers it as a win. It strengthens your identity as someone who keeps their word to themselves, and that identity is everything. Because once you see yourself as a disciplined person, your actions begin to align with that belief. On the other hand, when small habits are ignored, it sends the opposite message. It tells your brain that rules are flexible, that consistency is optional, and that comfort comes first. Over time, this mindset spreads into other areas of life. It becomes easier to skip saving money, easier to make impulsive purchases, and harder to stay committed to long-term goals. This is why small habits are never just small. They are signals. They tell your mind what kind of person you are becoming. When you choose to follow a simple rule like removing your shoes every day, you are quietly building a foundation of reliability and control. You are showing yourself that you don't need external pressure to do the right thing. You can rely on your own standards. And here's where it gets even more powerful. Small habits reduce decision fatigue. Most people struggle with discipline because they rely on constant decision-making. Should I do this or not? Do I feel like it today? This mental back and forth drains energy. But when a habit becomes automatic, when it's simply what you do, there's no debate. You don't think about it. You just act. That's exactly how many successful people operate. They remove unnecessary decisions from their daily lives by turning good behaviors into fixed habits. This frees up mental energy for bigger, more important choices, like business decisions, investments, and long-term planning. Over time, these small automatic actions compound. Just like money grows with consistent investment, discipline grows with consistent behavior. One simple habit leads to another. Order leads to clarity. Clarity leads to better decisions. And better decisions lead to better results. So when you look at something as simple as taking off your shoes, don't dismiss it. See it for what it really is, a daily opportunity to practice consistency. A chance to strengthen your discipline in the smallest way possible, so that when bigger challenges come, you're already prepared. Because in the end, it's not the big moments that define success. It's the small things you choose to do, again and again, until they shape who you are. Walk into any space, and within seconds, you can feel something about it. You don't need anyone to explain it. Some places feel calm, clear, and intentional. Others feel cluttered, rushed, and slightly overwhelming. What's interesting is that these environments don't just affect your mood in the moment. They quietly shape the way you think, decide, and behave over time. Your home is the most powerful of these environments, because it's where you spend a significant part of your life. It's where your habits are formed, where your mind resets, and where your identity is reinforced daily. Whether you realize it or not, the condition of your home becomes a mirror of your internal world, and just as importantly, it begins to influence your financial behavior. When a space is clean, organized, and intentional, your mind has less resistance. You think more clearly, you feel more in control. Decisions come with less stress because your environment is not competing for your attention. But when your surroundings are messy or inconsistent, your brain has to work harder just to process what's around you. That mental clutter often turns into emotional clutter, leading to distraction, procrastination, and impulsive choices. This is where the idea of removing shoes becomes more than just a habit. It becomes a symbol of how seriously you take your space. It sets a standard. This environment matters. It deserves care. It deserves respect. And when you treat your home with that level of intention, you start to treat other areas of your life the same way, including your finances. Think about the connection between respect and ownership. When people truly value something, they take care of it. They maintain it. They protect it. The same principle applies to money. If your environment reflects care and order, it reinforces the mindset that what you have is worth preserving and growing. You become less likely to waste, less likely to act carelessly, and more likely to think long-term. On the other hand, when your environment feels temporary, disorganized, or neglected, it sends a different message. It creates a subtle sense that things don't need to be maintained, that details don't matter, and that it's okay to be casual with what you own. Over time, that attitude can extend to how you handle money, leading to unnecessary spending, lack of planning, and poor financial decisions. There's also a powerful feedback loop at play. Your environment influences your behavior, and your behavior reinforces your environment. If you maintain a clean, structured home, it encourages disciplined actions, and those disciplined actions help you maintain that same level of order. It becomes a cycle that strengthens itself. The act of taking off your shoes contributes to that cycle in a simple but meaningful way. It reduces dirt, keeps the space cleaner, and makes it easier to maintain order. But more importantly, it reinforces a mindset. This is a place of intention. Every time you follow that rule, you are aligning your actions with that belief. Over time, this alignment builds identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who values order, who respects their space, and who pays attention to details. And once that identity is established, it naturally extends into other areas of life. You start organizing your finances more carefully. You track where your money goes. You make decisions with more thought and less impulse. Clarity plays a huge role here. When your environment is clear, your thinking becomes clearer. And when your thinking is clear, your decisions improve. This is especially important with money, where small decisions repeated over time can lead to very different outcomes. A clear mind is better at planning, prioritizing, and resisting short-term temptations in favor of long-term benefits. So your home is not just a place where you live. It's a training ground for how you think and act. Every detail from how you enter it to how you maintain it sends signals to your brain about what matters and how to behave. When those signals are consistent and intentional, they create a strong foundation for disciplined, thoughtful decision-making. And in the long run, that foundation doesn't just make your home feel better, it shapes the kind of person you become. Someone who values order, respects what they have, and approaches life, including money, with clarity and purpose. Most people go through their day on autopilot. They wake up, check their phone, react to messages, rush through tasks, and make decisions quickly, often without thinking deeply about them. This constant state of reaction feels normal, but it has a hidden cost. When you live this way, your choices are driven by impulse, emotion, and external pressure rather than clarity and intention. Over time, that pattern doesn't just affect your daily routine, it shapes your financial life as well. Now consider something as simple as the act of removing your shoes before entering your home. It forces a pause, just a few seconds where you stop moving, shift your attention, and perform a deliberate action. It may not seem like much, but that pause interrupts autopilot. It creates awareness, and awareness is where control begins. That brief moment at the door is like a reset button. You're no longer rushing, you're no longer reacting, you are choosing your next action consciously. And when you repeat this every day, your brain starts to learn a powerful pattern. Before entering a new space or situation, pause and become aware. This pattern is incredibly valuable when applied to decision-making, especially with money. Financial mistakes often happen in moments of impulse, a sudden desire to buy something, a quick decision driven by excitement or fear, a reaction to what others are doing. In those moments there is no pause, only action. And without a pause, there is no space for logic, evaluation, or long-term thinking. But when you train yourself to pause, even in small ways, you create a gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, you gain power. You can ask yourself questions. Do I really need this? Is this aligned with my goals? What will this decision look like a week from now, or a year from now? That ability to step back, even briefly, is what separates reactive behavior from intentional behavior. The habit of removing your shoes becomes a daily exercise in building that gap. It conditions your mind to slow down at key moments. And once that habit is ingrained, it begins to show up in other areas of your life automatically. You hesitate before making unnecessary purchases. You think twice before committing to something risky. You become less influenced by emotions and more guided by clarity. There's also an emotional benefit to this pause. When you're constantly reacting, your stress levels stay high. Your mind feels busy and scattered. But when you introduce small moments of stillness, your nervous system begins to calm down. You feel more grounded, more in control, and a calm mind is far better at making smart decisions than a rushed, anxious one. This is especially important in situations involving money, where pressure and emotion often play a big role. Whether it's investing, spending, or saving, the ability to remain calm and think clearly can make a significant difference in outcomes. And that ability doesn't appear suddenly in big moments. It's built through small, repeated practices like the one at your doorway. Another important aspect is intentional living. When you pause before acting, you shift from being a passive participant in your life to an active one. You start making choices based on your values rather than your impulses. You become more deliberate about how you use your time, your energy, and your resources. Over time, this creates a sense of control and direction. You're no longer drifting through decisions, you're guiding them. And that sense of control is closely linked to success, especially in financial matters. People who feel in control are more likely to plan, to set goals, and to follow through on them. So that small act of removing your shoes is not just about cleanliness or routine. It's a daily reminder to slow down, to become aware, and to choose your actions carefully. It teaches you that every decision, no matter how small, deserves a moment of thought. And when you carry that mindset into bigger areas of your life, including how you handle money, it becomes a powerful advantage. Because in a world that constantly pushes you to act quickly, the ability to pause, even for a few seconds, can be the difference between reacting blindly and responding wisely. There's a quiet pattern you'll notice if you observe people who build lasting success. They pay attention to things most others ignore. Not because those things are big or impressive, but because they understand that small details reflect deeper values. The way someone treats their personal space, the way they maintain order, the way they show respect to everyday environments, these are not random behaviors. They are signals of how that person approaches life. When someone removes their shoes before entering their home, it may look like a simple act of cleanliness, but underneath it, there's a mindset of respect. Respect for the space they live in, respect for the people who share that space, and respect for the idea that not every place should be treated casually. This kind of awareness may seem subtle, but it carries a powerful influence. Respect creates standards, and standards shape behavior. When you decide that your home deserves care and order, you begin to act differently inside it. You're less careless, you're more mindful, you notice details. And over time, this attention to detail becomes part of your identity. You start to carry that same level of awareness into other areas of your life, your work, your relationships, and especially your finances. Order plays a crucial role here as well. A space that is organized and maintained reduces friction. It allows you to move through your environment with ease. You spend less time searching for things, less time dealing with clutter, and more time focusing on what actually matters. This clarity doesn't just make life more comfortable, it makes thinking more effective. And clear thinking is essential when it comes to building and managing wealth. Financial success often depends on your ability to stay organized, track details, and make thoughtful decisions over time. When your surroundings reflect order, your mind is more likely to operate the same way. You become more structured in how you handle money. You plan better, you avoid unnecessary chaos, and you develop systems that support long-term growth instead of short-term reactions. Then there's the idea of energy, not in a mystical sense, but in terms of focus and attention. Every environment carries a certain feeling. When a space is respected and maintained, it feels calm and stable. That kind of environment supports concentration, creativity, and thoughtful decision-making. On the other hand, a space that feels neglected or chaotic can drain your mental energy without you even realizing it. By setting a simple rule like removing shoes, you contribute to maintaining that calm and ordered environment. It's a small action that protects the overall quality of the space. And when your environment consistently supports clarity and focus, it becomes easier to stay aligned with your goals. This is where success begins to connect. People who build wealth are not just focused on big opportunities. They are careful with how they manage what they already have. They protect their time, their energy, and their resources. They create systems that reduce waste and increase efficiency. And often these systems start with small habits that reinforce respect and order in everyday life. Another important element is consistency. Respect and order are not one-time actions. They are maintained daily. Each time you follow a simple rule, you reinforce your standards. You remind yourself that details matter. And over time that belief becomes deeply ingrained. Once it becomes part of who you are, it influences everything. You don't just organize your home, you organize your finances. You don't just respect your space, you respect your commitments. You don't just maintain order around you, you create structure in your decisions. And structure leads to stability. In the long run, stability is what allows wealth to grow. And last, it prevents unnecessary losses, reduces stress, and creates a foundation for consistent progress. Without it, even large amounts of money can disappear quickly. But with it, even small resources can expand over time. So that simple act at the doorway is not just about keeping things clean, it's a reflection of a deeper philosophy. Treat what you have with care, create order where you can, and act with awareness in even the smallest moments. Because when respect, order, and focused energy become part of your daily life, success is no longer something you chase, it becomes something you naturally build.